Welcome to my channel. If you love BL stories, fantasy romance, and transmigration worlds, then you are in the right place. Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's dive into today's story. The air in the luxury SUV was thick with two things: the scent of expensive sandalwood and the sound of frantic crunching. Lucas sat in the driver's seat, his knuckles white against the leather steering wheel. Beside him, William stared out the window with the thousand-yard stare of a man who had seen too much. In the back seat, the Terror twins, Leo and Alex, were currently sharing a single bag of extra spicy chips, moving in such perfect synchronicity they looked like a glitch in the Matrix. Lucas closed his eyes for a second, the memory of their wedding day hitting him like a freight train. "I still can't believe it," Lucas muttered, his voice a mix of awe and despair. "I thought I was just marrying you, Alex. I didn't realize it was a buy one, get one free deal." "It wasn't a deal, Lucas," William sighed from the passenger seat. "It was a hostage situation. Remember the altar? The scene, 6 months ago. The priest had asked if anyone objected. Leo had stood up, not to object, but to drag a second altar next to the first one. 'If Alex goes, I go,' Leo had declared, dragging a bewildered William by his tie. 'William, marry me right now so we can live in the same house and share a closet forever.' William, who had been hopelessly in love with the mischievous Leo for years, had simply sighed and said, 'Fine, but I'm not sharing my toothbrush.' They had been married in a double ceremony. The alphas had envisioned romantic dinners and quiet nights. The reality. "Last night," William said, turning his head to look at his brother. "I woke up at 3 a.m. You weren't there. I went to find you, and you were in the kitchen with Alex, wearing matching onesies, trying to see how many marshmallows you could fit in your mouths while watching The Conjuring. It's called bonding, Willie," Leo chirped from the back, popping a chip into William's mouth. "You wouldn't understand. You alphas are so solitary. Like grumpy bears. I just want to sleep in my own bed with my own wife," Lucas groaned. "Is that too much to ask? Every time I try to cuddle Alex, I find you tucked under the duvet on the other side like a sprouted mushroom." "This honeymoon is going to be different," Lucas said, his voice regaining its ruthless CEO edge. "We bought this island specifically because there are no distractions. No malls, no cinemas, just us. And us," Alex added, hugging Leo's arm. "We told you, we aren't going to separate islands. What if Leo gets lonely? What if I need to tell him a joke at 4 a.m.? We'd have to swim. Do you want us to drown? Is that it? Are you tired of us already?" Alex's eyes began to well up with crocodile tears. Leo immediately followed suit, lower lip trembling in perfect unison. "No, no, no," William panicked, reaching back to pat Leo's knee. "We love you. We thought maybe some couple time, as in 2 people, would be nice. 4 is a party. 2 is a meeting," Leo declared, instantly cheered up. To the island. The boat ride to the private island was bumpy, mostly because Leo and Alex kept trying to stand on the boat to reenact Titanic, nearly falling into the waves every 5 minutes. As the boat pulled away from the dock, leaving the 4 of them alone on the sand, the alphas looked up at their newly purchased paradise. The island was lush, green, and strangely silent. At the top of a jagged hill sat the mansion. It wasn't exactly the modern luxury villa the brochure had promised. It was a towering, Victorian monstrosity with gray stone walls, ivy that looked like it was trying to strangle the building, and windows that looked like hollow eyes. "Ah, Lucas." William squinted. "Did the real estate agent mention the house? Looks like it eats people for breakfast." "It's vintage, William," Lucas said, though his own voice wavered. "It's got character. It's historic." The twins, however, were thrilled. "Oh my God, Alex. It looks just like the house from that horror movie we watched last week." Leo screamed with delight, grabbing his suitcase. "The one where everyone dies in the first 10 minutes?" Alex asked, bouncing on his heels. "Classic. Maybe there's a secret basement with chains." "Don't say that," William muttered, shivering despite the tropical heat. "There are no chains. It's a honeymoon. It's going to be romantic." "Right, Lucas." Lucas looked at the dark, looming front door of the mansion. A single crow landed on the roof and let out a long, haunting caw. "Right," Lucas whispered. 1 month. Just the 4 of us. What's the worst that could happen? The four of them stood in a line, two alphas trying to look brave, and two omegas vibrating with excitement, staring up at the big, old, empty mansion that felt like it was staring right back. The four of them stood at the foot of the massive stone steps, their luggage piled around them like a barricade against the eerie silence of the island. The mansion didn't just look old, it looked like it had been held together by spite and spiderwebs. "It's rustic," William said, his voice cracking slightly. "Very shabby chic, right, Leo?" Leo was currently hiding behind William's broad back, peering out with one eye. "Willie, if a vampire opens that door, I am using you as a human shield. Just so you know, our love is strong, but my fear of pointy teeth is stronger." Suddenly, the massive oak doors creaked open with a sound like a dying cello. A figure emerged from the shadows. He was hunched, wearing a suit that looked like it hadn't been pressed since the 1920s, and his skin had the texture of a dried-up lemon. "Welcome to the Blackwood estate," the man rasped. His voice sounded like gravel rubbing against sandpaper. "I have been waiting for fresh souls." "Aaaaaaah." Leo and Alex screamed in perfect harmony, leaping into their husbands' arms. Leo wrapped his legs around William's waist like a koala, while Alex practically climbed onto Lucas's head. "It's a ghost. It's a zombie. Lucas, punch it," Alex shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at the man. Now, the old man wheezed, a creepy, toothless grin spreading across his face. "I am Mr. Grimshaw. I am the caretaker, and the chef, and the only person within 50 miles who knows how to work the plumbing." The alphas let out a synchronized sigh of relief. Lucas gently slid Alex down to the ground, though the Omega kept a death grip on his arm. "Jesus, Mr. Grimshaw," Lucas panted, clutching his chest. "You nearly gave me a heart attack. You're human, you're sure?" "Last time I checked, sir," Grimshaw croaked. "Though my doctor says my heart beats once every 3 minutes. Efficiency, you see." As they entered the foyer, the air was cold enough to see their breath. Dust motes danced in the dim light of a flickering chandelier that looked like it was held up by a single, tired thread. "I have prepared the master suites on the 2nd floor," Grimshaw said, pointing a bony finger upward. "But I must warn you, there is one rule. Do not go to the 3rd floor." The atmosphere turned heavy. William narrowed his eyes. "Why? Is it structurally unsound?" "It is filthy," Grimshaw said, his eyes darting toward the twins. "Full of dust, rats the size of small dogs, and ancient, boring boxes. Very boring. No one should go there. Especially not curious, naughty omegas." Lucas nodded firmly. "Understood." "Leo, Alex, did you hear that? The 3rd floor is off limits. It's dirty and dangerous." "Oh, absolutely," Leo said, his eyes suddenly sparkling, with a suspicious amount of innocence. "Totally. We hate dust. We're very hygienic." "Yes," Alex added, nodding so hard his hair flopped. "We wouldn't dream of it. We'll stay right here on the 1st and 2nd floors. Like good little boys." The twins shared a split-second look. Communication received. Translation: there is definitely treasure up there. Or a secret dungeon. Or a hoard of vintage snacks. We are going up there the second they fall asleep. After Grimshaw disappeared into the kitchen to boil something gray for dinner, the two couples retreated to their respective rooms, which were, of course, right next to each other. In Lucas and Alex's room, Lucas tried to set a romantic mood. He lit a candle which immediately blew out from a draft and pulled Alex close. Finally, Lucas whispered, nuzzling Alex's neck. "Just you and me. No Leo, no marshmallows, just thump, thump, thump." The wall literally vibrated. "Alex, are you awake?" Leo's voice boomed through the wallpaper. "I think I heard a rat. Can I come over?" Lucas groaned into Alex's shoulder. "Tell him no. Please, for the love of my sanity, tell him no." Alex giggled, kissing Lucas's cheek. "Aw, Lucas, he's scared. But don't worry, I'll handle it." He turned to the wall and shouted back, "Go to sleep, Leo. Use William as a teddy bear. We have a big treasure hunt tomorrow." "A what?" Lucas asked, pulling back. "A pleasure hunt," Alex corrected quickly, fluttering his eyelashes. "For romance. You know, hunting for kisses." Meanwhile, in the other room, Leo was currently jumping on the bed while William tried to unpack. "Willie, this place is great," Leo cheered. "It's like a giant escape room." If we find the treasure on the 3rd floor, we can buy our own island and live together forever. William caught Leo midair and pinned him to the mattress, staring down at him with an expression of weary adoration. Leo, listen to me. No treasure hunting. No naughtiness. Just 1 month of being a normal, married couple. Can you do that for me? Leo pouted, wrapping his arms around William's neck. You're so strict, Alpha. It's kind of hot when you use your CEO voice on me. William's heart melted, which was exactly what Leo wanted. I just want you safe, William whispered, leaning in for a kiss. Just as their lips were about to touch, the door burst open. Alex stood there, holding a tray of half-burnt toast. Sleeper party in Leo's room. Alex announced, jumping onto the bed between them. Lucas is crying in his pillow, so I brought snacks. An hour later, the alphas were finally fast asleep, exhausted by the travel and their chaotic spouses. Lucas was snoring softly, and William was out cold, dreaming of a world where his brother-in-law didn't exist. In the hallway, 2 shadows moved silently. Did you bring the flashlight? Leo whispered. I brought the one that looks like a cat, Alex whispered back, clicking it on. A faint beam of light illuminated the dust-covered stairs leading to the 3rd floor. Grimshaw said it was boring, Leo said, a mischievous grin stretching across his face. Which we all know is code for hidden gold, or secret family secrets. Or a map to a hidden chocolate factory, Alex added hopefully. They stood at the base of the 3rd floor staircase. The wood groaned under their feet, sounding like a warning, but the twins only giggled. They were the Terror Twins, and no old mansion, or grumpy alpha, was going to keep them from their fun. As they reached the top of the stairs, a cold wind blew from nowhere, and the heavy door at the end of the hall swung open on its own. The wooden stairs groaned like a dying beast as Leo and Alex crept toward the 3rd floor. Leo held his cat-shaped flashlight, which cast a faint, vibrating beam of light against the peeling floral wallpaper. If there's a mummy up here, I'm letting it eat you first, Alex whispered, gripping the back of Leo's pajamas. Rude. I'm the older twin by 4 minutes, Leo shot back. I'm the leader. You're the sidekick who gets sacrificed for the plot. They reached the heavy oak door at the end of the hall. With a synchronized deep breath, they pushed. It didn't lead to a room of gold or ancient scrolls. It led to a mess. Gross. Leo wrinkled his nose, shining his light over broken furniture and mountains of dust. Grimshaw wasn't lying. This isn't a treasure room, it's a dumpster with a roof. They poked through old trunks and dusty crates, finding nothing but moth-eaten curtains and a very depressed-looking rocking chair. Just as they were about to give up, the cat flashlight beam landed on something shimmering in the corner. Standing atop a pedestal was a life-sized statue of a peacock. It was made of tarnished silver, but its tail was magnificent, real, iridescent feathers fanned out in a display of faded glory. Whoa, Alex gasped, reaching out. It's beautiful. Look at those feathers, Leo. My grandma used to say if you sleep with a peacock feather under your pillow, you'll have dreams of your soulmate and a happy future. Really? Leo's eyes widened. Maybe if we put them under our pillows, William and Lucas will stop being so grumpy and finally agree to let us adopt a pet tiger. Logic. Alex cheered. With 2 synchronized plucks, they each pulled a long, shimmering feather from the statue. They scurried back down to the 2nd floor, giggling like schoolboys, and tucked the feathers deep beneath their silk pillows. Leo crawled into bed with a snoring William, and Alex snuggled up against Lucas, both falling into a deep, mischievous slumber. Leo woke up with a start. The air was freezing. Willie. I'm cold, he mumbled, reaching out his hand to touch William's chest. But his hand hit cold, hard floor. Leo's eyes snapped open. He wasn't in the plush master suite. He was sitting in the middle of the dark, cavernous living room on the 1st floor. The moonlight cast long, jagged shadows across the floorboards. What the? Leo scrambled up, his heart hammering. William. Lucas. This isn't funny. He ran back upstairs, his breath coming in short gasps. He burst into William's room. Empty. The bed was perfectly made, as if no one had ever slept there. He sprinted to Lucas and Alex's room. Empty. Alex. Leo screamed, his voice echoing through the hollow mansion. Alex. A muffled sob came from downstairs. Leo tumbled back down the stairs, tripping over his own feet, and found Alex curled into a ball near the fireplace. Leo. Alex wailed, throwing himself at his twin. Where are they? I woke up here and Lucas is gone. The boat is gone. Everything is gone. Did they leave us? Did they finally get tired of us being naughty? No, no, Leo cried, hugging Alex tight. William wouldn't leave me. He loves my annoying jokes. Flicker, flicker. The chandelier above them sparked. Then, the sound of heavy, dragging footsteps echoed from the hallway. Two figures emerged from the darkness. They wore old-fashioned suits, tuxedos that looked identical to the ones Lucas and William wore at the wedding. But where their heads should have been, there was only jagged, empty air. Oh my God, Leo shrieked. They're headless. The alphas are headless. Lucas, is that you? Alex yelled at the ghosts. If you're a ghost, I'm not paying the light bill. The headless ghosts groaned, a hollow, wet sound, and began to float toward them with outstretched arms. Run! Leo grabbed Alex's hand. They sprinted through the kitchen, knocking over pots and pans. Willie, Lucas, save us. We'll be good. We'll never watch movies until 4 a.m. again. We'll eat our vegetables. They collapsed in the corner of the pantry, sobbing and clutching each other as the headless spirits pounded on the door. Leo, wake up. Hey, baby, breathe. Leo's eyes flew open. He wasn't in the pantry. He was in his bed. The sun was peeking through the dusty curtains. Above him, William was looking down with an expression of pure terror, his hands firmly on Leo's shoulders. Leo was drenched in sweat, his face tear-stained. He immediately lunged forward, wrapping his arms around William's neck so hard the alpha nearly choked. Willie, your head. It's still there. Leo sobbed, petting William's face frantically. Oh, thank God, it's so handsome and attached to your neck. Of course it's attached, William said, confused but worried. You were screaming bloody murder, Leo. You were shaking so hard I thought you were having a seizure. Meanwhile, next door, Lucas, don't leave me on the island. Alex was wailing, buried under the covers. Lucas was trying to pry the duvet off him. Alex, I'm right here. I'm literally holding your hand. Stop kicking me. Alex popped his head out, his eyes red and puffy. He saw Lucas and immediately tackled him, nearly knocking the alpha off the bed. I thought you were a headless ghost. You were wearing your wedding suit and you looked so tall and scary. A few minutes later, the two couples met in the hallway. Both Omegas looked like they had been through a war. We went to the third floor, Leo confessed immediately, trembling. We took the feathers. The peacock feathers. It's a curse, William. The house wants our heads. William and Lucas exchanged a long, weary look. You went to the third floor after we specifically told you not to. Lucas asked, rubbing his temples. There are no ghosts, Alex, William sighed, pulling Leo into his side. It was a nightmare. You both probably ate too many of those spicy chips and your brains turned into mush. It's called collective suggestion. You both thought of something scary, and you dreamed it. But it felt so real. Alex insisted. The living room was so cold. It's an old house, it's always cold, Lucas pointed out. Now, come on, Mr. Grimshaw is making breakfast. I think I smell burnt toast and regret. As the alphas led their trembling husbands downstairs, they didn't notice something. On the third floor, in the dusty room, the silver peacock statue's head slowly turned to face the door. And in the living room, even though the windows were closed, a single, iridescent peacock feather drifted slowly through the air, landing exactly where Leo and Alex had been, dreaming, they were standing. The afternoon sun was streaming through the dust-caked windows of the mansion, casting long, honey-colored rectangles across the rugs. For a few hours, the terror of the morning seemed like a distant, slightly embarrassing memory. See, William said, leaning back in a velvet armchair as he reviewed a stack of legal documents. The sun is out, the birds are chirping, well, those crows are screaming, but same thing. No ghosts. Just an old house and too much imagination. Leo was currently draped over William's lap like a dramatic silk scarf, while Alex was sitting on the floor, using Lucas's legs as a backrest while he played a game on his phone. I guess, Leo muttered, playing with the buttons on William's shirt. But the headless you was very tall, Willie. You should wear that suit more often. Just, with the head attached. I'll keep that in mind, love, William chuckled, kissing the top of Leo's head. Lucas looked up from his laptop, pushing his glasses up his nose. We have about 3 hours of paperwork to finish for the firm. Why don't you two go take a nap? You look exhausted from all that dreaming you did last night. Alex yawned, his eyes drooping. A nap does sound good. As long as we sleep in the same room. Safety in numbers, right Leo? Right, Leo agreed. The alphas tucked their omegas into the massive bed in the master suite, piling blankets over them until they looked like two small burritos. We'll be right in the study next door, Lucas promised, closing the door softly. Sweet dreams. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, Leo was smelling the faint scent of William's cologne on the pillow. The next, he was shivering on the cold, hard marble of the foyer. Not again, Leo whispered, his voice trembling. Please, not again. Leo. A small, terrified voice came from behind a heavy velvet curtain. Alex poked his head out, his face pale as a sheet. We're back. We're in the living room. But I didn't even walk here. I was under the blanket. The alphas, they're gone again, Leo said, looking at the empty hallway. The grand staircase seemed to stretch upward forever, disappearing into a thick, unnatural fog. Suddenly, the temperature dropped until their breath came out in thick white clouds. From the shadows of the dining room, a tall, misty figure emerged. It wasn't just a headless groom this time. It was something darker, a shadow with elongated fingers that looked like jagged branches. Mine, a voice hissed, echoing not from the room, but from inside their own heads. Run! Alex screamed, grabbing Leo's hand. They scrambled toward the front door, but the handles turned into snakes, hissing and snapping at their fingers. They spun around, trapped in the center of the room. The shadow lunged forward with impossible speed. A cold, skeletal hand clamped around Leo's wrist. Leo! Alex shrieked. The ghost began to drag Leo toward a door that shouldn't have been there, a narrow, black slit in the wall that pulsed like a heartbeat. Leo's heels skidded across the floor, his fingernails digging into the wood. Alex! Don't let go. It's pulling me into the basement. Leo cried, tears streaming down his face. Alex threw his entire weight onto Leo's other arm, anchoring him. I've got you. I'm not letting it take you. You owe me $5 from that bet yesterday. You can't die yet. It was a terrifying tug of war. The ghost pulled with the strength of a gale force wind, and Alex held on with the desperation of a twin who couldn't imagine a world without his other half. Let him go, you ugly shadow. Alex yelled, trying to kick the misty figure. Leo. Alex. Wake up. The world shattered like glass. Leo gasped for air, his lungs burning as if he'd been underwater. He was back in the master suite. William was shaking him violently, his face twisted with genuine panic. Next to him, Lucas had Alex pinned down, as Alex was still flailing his legs and trying to kick the air. Hey, it's okay. You're safe, William shouted, pulling Leo into a crushing embrace. You were screaming so loud the crows flew off the roof. What happened? Leo was sobbing, his face buried in William's neck. Alex was doing the same with Lucas, trembling so hard the bed frame was rattling. It was the same, Alex choked out. The living room. The ghost. It tried to take Leo. Lucas sighed, rubbing Alex's back. Another nightmare, baby. It was just a really intense one. Look, you're both right here. Nothing touched you. Leo started to nod, wanting to believe his husband. He wanted to believe it was just the spicy chips or the shabby chic house playing tricks on him. But then, as he wiped his eyes, his sleeve slid back. His breath hitched. Around his wrist was a dark, purple-black bruise in the perfect shape of a thin, skeletal hand. The skin was red and inflamed, as if it had been burned by ice. Leo looked over at Alex. Alex noticed the mark at the same time. His eyes widened, and he instinctively pulled his own sleeve down to hide his shaking hands. Leo, William asked softly, noticing his husband's sudden silence. What is it? Leo looked at the bruise, then looked at William's kind, skeptical face. He knew if he showed the mark, William would just say he grabbed his own wrist in his sleep, or hit it on the headboard. Alphas were so logical it was annoying. Nothing, Leo whispered, tucking his hand under the blanket. I need some water. And I never want to sleep again. Ever. Me neither, Alex added, his voice small. Let's just stay awake for the rest of the month. We can play Monopoly. That takes like 3 weeks to finish anyway. Lucas laughed, oblivious to the terror hidden under the covers. Fine. No more naps for the troublemakers. Let's go get some dinner. I think Grimshaw made something that looks like soup, but smells like old socks. As they walked out of the room, Leo and Alex lagged behind, walking shoulder to shoulder. It left a mark, Alex, Leo whispered, showing him the wrist for a split second. Alex swallowed hard. We have to go back to that third floor, Leo. Tonight. While they're busy. We have to put those feathers back, or find out who that ghost wants to marry more than we do. The situation had reached a state of maximum omega meltdown. Leo and Alex were currently sitting on the kitchen island, clutching their mugs of cocoa as if they contained the elixir of life. Neither had slept more than 20 minutes in the last 48 hours. They had matchsticks holding their eyelids open metaphorically and jumped every time the refrigerator hummed. We tried, Alex, Leo whispered, his eyes bloodshot. We snuck up there. We put the feathers back on that stupid silver bird. We even said, sorry, in 3 different languages. Why are we still waking up in the ghostly living room? Maybe the peacock is a diva, Alex groaned, resting his head on the cold marble. Maybe it wants an apology in the form of a dance. Or maybe, the house has already tasted our fear and it likes the flavor. It's like spicy chips for ghosts, Leo. We are the spicy chips. Lucas and William were at their wits' end. They stood in the hallway, watching their husbands flinch at a passing butterfly. This is getting out of hand, William whispered. Leo told me this morning that the toaster was looking at him with judgmental eyes. He's losing it. I called Drive. Ethan, Lucas said, rubbing his tired eyes. He's a specialist, he's our friend, and more importantly, he's an alpha who won't take their nonsense. He's bringing his omega, Sora, too. Maybe a double date will distract them from this haunting business. 2 hours later, a sleek black car pulled up to the crumbling mansion. Ethan, a tall, calm alpha with a medical bag, stepped out, followed by Sora, a cheerful omega who looked like he hadn't a care in the world. Welcome to the middle of nowhere. Leo shouted from the porch, running down to hug Sora. Sora, thank God you're here. This house is trying to eat us. Look at my wrist. He showed the bruise. Ethan leaned in, adjusting his glasses. Interesting hematoma, Leo. Looks like you got it caught in a doorframe during one of your naughty episodes. It wasn't a doorframe. It was a headless groom. Leo cried. Ethan patted Leo's head. Of course it was. And I'm sure the groom was very handsome. Now, let's go inside. I need to check your vitals. While the alphas were in the study discussing serious business, and Sora was busy unpacking his collection of scented candles to clear the vibes, Leo and Alex huddled in the corner. They don't believe us, Alex hissed. Ethan thinks we're just being dramatic omegas. He actually used the word histrionics. We need a witness, Leo said, his eyes gleaming with a manic spark. If we can get Ethan to take a feather, the ghost will pull him into the dream world too. Once a doctor sees a headless ghost, he has to diagnose it, right? It's the law. But how? Alex asked. We tell him there's a rare medicinal herb growing on the 3rd floor, Leo grinned. Or better yet, we tell him the peacock statue is an antique worth millions and he needs to inspect its quality. Later that evening, after a very awkward dinner where Mr. Grimshaw served something that moved when poked with a fork, the twins made their move. Oh, Ethan, Leo called out, leaning against the banister. Since you're so interested in history, you should really see the statue on the 3rd floor. It's scientifically fascinating. Is it? Ethan asked, looking up from his medical journal. Very. Alex chirped. The feathers, they have a unique molecular structure. Right, Leo. Totally molecular, Leo nodded. Curiosity got the better of the doctor. Ethan, followed by a confused Sora and the 2 scheming twins, climbed the creaky stairs. The 3rd floor felt heavier tonight, the air smelling like old perfume and rot. They reached the peacock. Even in the dim light, the silver statue looked menacing. It's a fine piece of craftsmanship, Ethan admitted, leaning in. But I don't see anything molecular about it. You have to touch the feathers, Ethan, Leo urged, his voice trembling with excitement. Actually, you should take one. 2. Study it under your microscope back home. Ethan laughed. You two are obsessed with these feathers. Fine. If it makes you stop talking about ghosts for 5 minutes, I'll take a sample. Ethan reached out and pulled a shimmering feather from the tail. Suddenly, a cold wind slammed the door shut. The room went pitch black for a second. Who turned out the lights? Sora squeaked, grabbing Ethan's arm. Just the wind, Leo shouted, though he was secretly high-fiving Alex in the dark. Don't worry about it. Let's go back down and have some wine. That night, the house was silent. Lucas and Alex were in one room, William and Leo in another, Ethan and Sora in the guest suite. Everyone was tucked in. 1 a.m. Ethan woke up. He wasn't in his comfortable guest bed. He was standing in the middle of the dark living room. Sora, Ethan called out, his doctor's calm finally cracking. This isn't the bedroom. How did we get? He looked to his left. Sora was there, shivering in his silk pajamas. To his right, Leo and Alex were already sitting on the sofa, looking like they were waiting for a movie to start. Welcome to the party, Doc. Leo shouted, waving a hand. Check your watch. The ghost should be here in about 30 seconds. What is this? Ethan demanded, looking around at the shifting shadows. Is this a prank? Lucas, William, if you're using holographic projectors, I'm overcharging you for this visit. Flicker, flicker. The headless ghosts appeared at the top of the stairs. This time, there were 3. One was wearing a white doctor's coat, but it was covered in blood, and the head was missing, replaced by a floating, rusty stethoscope. Oh, my God, Sora whimpered, hiding behind Ethan. Is that a headless surgeon? Ethan gasped, his professional logic crumbling into dust. Yep, Alex said, popping the P. And look, he's coming for you because you have his feather. Run, Doc, run. The headless surgeon began to float toward Ethan, swinging the rusty stethoscope like a whip. This is not scientifically possible. Ethan screamed, grabbing Sora's hand and sprinting toward the kitchen. This defies every law of biology. Tell that to the ghost, Ethan. Leo yelled, running right beside him. Maybe he needs a second opinion. The sun rose, hitting the mansion's dusty windows. In the master suite, William yawned and reached for Leo, only to find him cold, soaked in sweat, and shaking violently. His eyes were fluttering, but he wouldn't wake up. Leo, Leo, William shouted, shaking him. Wake up, you're having that nightmare again. At the same time, in the next room, Lucas was frantically trying to wake Alex. Alex, breathe, it's just a dream. Finally, with a loud gasp, Leo and Alex snapped awake in their respective beds. They didn't even say, good morning. Without a word, they both bolted out of their rooms and collided in the hallway. Doctor's room. Now, Leo screamed. They burst into the guest suite. Ethan and Sora were lying perfectly still, but their faces were twisted in horror, and they were shaking so hard the bed frame was rattling against the wall. Ethan, Sora, wake up. Leo and Alex screamed, jumping onto the bed and shaking the doctor and his Omega with all their might. Ethan snapped awake, sitting bolt upright and nearly knocking his glasses off. He was gasping for air, his face pale. Sora scrambled into a corner of the bed, sobbing. The doctor. Ethan panted, looking at his hands. He had no head, and the stethoscope. William and Lucas ran into the room, looking at the 4 of them in shock. Ethan, you too? Lucas asked, his voice full of disbelief. Leo crossed his arms, his bruised wrist visible. The doctor says it's ghosts, Lucas. Now do you believe us, or do we need to get a lawyer ghost involved next? The tension in the guest suite was so thick you could cut it with a rusty surgical scalpel. Ethan was currently wrapped in a duvet, vibrating like a smartphone on silent mode, while Sora was clutching a bottle of holy water he had apparently hidden in his toiletry bag. Okay, William said, his voice deep and serious. He looked at the bruise on Leo's wrist, then at Ethan's traumatized expression. I'm a man of logic, but logic just jumped out the window. If the doctor is seeing headless surgeons, something is definitely wrong. Lucas nodded, his business mode activated. Fine. If this feather is a portal to a nightmare, then William and I are going in. We aren't letting you 4 face that alone. Give me the flashlight. I'm going to the 3rd floor to pluck that bird bald. No. Leo and Alex screamed in unison, tackling their respective alphas before they could reach the door. You can't go. Leo cried, wrapping himself around William's legs like a human vine. It's dangerous. The headless groom is very tall and very mean. I can't let your handsome head be at risk. Exactly. Alex added, holding Lucas's waist. We need you awake to protect us in the real world. If we all go to the dream world, who's going to shake us awake? We'll be stuck there forever eating ghost food. Ethan pushed his glasses up his nose, glaring at the twins with a look of pure, medical-grade betrayal. Wait, hold on a second, Ethan rasped. Let me get this straight. You won't let your alphas pull the feather because it's dangerous, and you want to protect them. Yes, Leo said innocently, nodding. Because we love them. Then why did you make me do it? Ethan roared, throwing a pillow at Leo. You literally told me it was a molecular study. You sacrificed me. I was a lab rat for your ghost experiment. Well, Leo said, dodging the pillow. William and Lucas are our husbands. You're just our doctor. It's like a hierarchy of survival. Plus, you're an alpha. I thought you'd perform an emergency appendectomy on the ghost or something. I'm a cardiologist, Leo. I can't fix a heart that isn't there because the patient has no torso. Ethan shrieked. Safety first, Ethan. Alex chirped, hiding behind Lucas. We had to prove it to them. You were the most credible witness. It's a compliment, really. The argument was interrupted by a heavy, rhythmic thud-thud-thud of a cane. Mr. Grimshaw stood in the doorway, his one good eye squinting at them through the gloom. I told you, the old man wheezed, his voice sounding like dry leaves. I told you, do not go to the third floor. Grimshaw. Lucas barked, stepping forward. Explain this. Now. Why are my wife and my friends being hunted by headless bridesmaids and surgeons? Grimshaw let out a cackle that turned into a wet cough. He looked at Leo and Alex. The twins, the naughty little omegas. You thought it was a game. You thought the peacock was a toy. It looked expensive. Leo protested. You have activated the vow of the headless, Grimshaw said, his face turning grim. The feathers you took are not just feathers. They are anchors. Now that you've touched them, the mansion has your scent. So we just leave, right? William asked, grabbing Leo's hand. We get on the boat, we go back to the city, and we never look at a bird again. Go. Grimshaw laughed, a sound like glass breaking. You can fly to the moon, and it won't matter. Wherever you sleep, the dream will find you. You will close your eyes in a penthouse in the city, and you will wake up, in this living room. Every night. Until the vow is completed. Completed how? Alex whispered, trembling. Ask the one who started it. Grimshaw pointed his cane toward a dusty portrait over the fireplace, a man with a stern face and a very, very long neck. The last owner. Lord Malachi. He lives in the village across the water. He's the only one who knows why the ghosts are looking for their heads. But be warned, he doesn't like visitors. Especially loud, naughty ones. Great, Leo sighed, leaning his head on William's shoulder. A road trip to see a crazy old man who hates us. This is the worst honeymoon ever. I didn't even get to wear my new swimsuit. We're going, Lucas decided, his voice cold. Ethan, pack your bag. Sora, keep that holy water ready. We're going to find this Lord Malachi and find out how to give these ghosts their heads back so we can finally get some sleep. And if he doesn't help? Sora asked nervously. Leo narrowed his eyes. Then I'm stealing his peacock, too. Leo, no. Everyone shouted. The boat ride back to the mainland was the quietest the Terror Twins had ever been. Leo and Alex sat sandwiched between their husbands, staring at the receding island with identical expressions of pouty dread. Ethan sat at the front of the boat, wearing 2 pairs of sunglasses, one to block the sun and one to hide the dark circles under his eyes. Sora was busy drawing protective circles around the group with a stick of chalk he'd found in his bag. So, William said, breaking the silence as he adjusted the boat's engine. We are going to find a man named Lord Malachi, who lives in a village that isn't on Google Maps, to ask him why a silver bird is kidnapping our husbands' souls. Is that the itinerary? Don't forget the Headless Doctor, Ethan added dryly. I'd like to file a formal complaint with his medical board. His bedside manner was atrocious. They arrived at the village, which looked like it had been designed by someone who found cheerfulness offensive. The houses were leaning against each other for support, and the villagers stopped walking to stare at the flashy alphas and their trembling omegas. Why is everyone looking at us like we're the daily special at a cannibal cafe? Alex whispered, clutching Lucas's arm. Because you're wearing a neon pink hoodie in a town that clearly hasn't discovered color yet, baby, Lucas sighed, though he pulled Alex closer, his protective alpha scent flaring. They found Malachi's manor at the edge of a cliff. It was even gloomier than the honeymoon mansion. An old butler, who made Mr. Grimshaw look like a supermodel, led them into a study filled with jars of things. Mostly pickled things. Lord Malachi was sitting in a high-backed chair. He was thin, pale, and had a neck so long it looked like it was trying to escape his shirt. The peacock thieves have arrived, Malachi rasped without turning around. How did you? Leo started, but Malachi held up a skeletal hand. The feathers scream when they are moved. I've been hearing them for 3 days. You've been marked by the beheaded bridegroom. Malachi turned his chair. 100 years ago, a groom was decapitated on his wedding night by a jealous rival. His bride hid his head in that mansion so they could never be truly separated. But over time, the house became a magnet for those who died, incomplete. The peacock is the guardian. When you took the feathers, you opened the door for them to find new bodies to inhabit. New bodies. Sora squeaked, hiding behind Ethan. You mean they want our bodies? They want the alphas, heads, Malachi said, pointing a finger at Lucas and William. And they want the omegas to stay in the dream world forever to play the role of the grieving brides. Leo looked at William's neck. No way. I picked this head out myself. I'm not letting a ghost swap it for a refurbished one. But why the doctor ghost? Ethan asked, still bitter. Malachi shrugged. There was a plague in 1912. The doctor ran out of medicine and the villagers, well, they took his head too. He's just looking for a replacement stethoscope. This is ridiculous. Lucas slammed his hand on the desk. How do we stop it? We can't keep living in a nightmare. There is one way, Malachi said, leaning in. You must find the hidden heads in the mansion's basement and reunite them with the ghosts. But the ghosts will try to stop you. They like the dream world. It's the only place they feel whole. As the sun began to set over the village, the group headed back toward the docks. Suddenly, Leo stopped. He looked at his own shadow on the cobblestone street. Ah, Alex. Alex looked down. Their shadows were no longer following their movements. While the twins were standing perfectly still, their shadows were dancing. Then, the shadows grew longer, stretching toward the alphas, feet like dark, grasping hands. Willie, look, Leo yelled, jumping into William's arms. The shadows of the headless ghosts were appearing on the ground in broad daylight, trailing them like silent hunters. They're following us, Sora cried, tripping over his own feet. The dream world is leaking. Everyone to the boat, William commanded, hoisting Leo over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. We're going back to the island. If we have to find some dusty heads to get our honeymoon back, then that's what we're going to do. Can we stop for snacks first? Alex asked while being dragged away by Lucas. I feel like ghost hunting requires a high caloric intake. No snacks, Alex. The alphas yelled in unison. The boat ride back to the island felt like a journey into the mouth of a giant, hungry beast. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky a bruised purple. Okay, the plan is simple, William said, checking a heavy-duty flashlight. We get to the mansion, we go straight to the basement, we find the heads, we give them back, and then we burn those peacock feathers in a bonfire. Clear. And then we move to a luxury penthouse in the city with 24-hour security and 0 birds, Leo added, clutching William's arm. I'm done with the nature vibe. Nature is mean. I just want to know where one hides ahead, Sora whispered, clutching his holy water. Is it in a jar? A box? A designer handbag? In my dream, the doctor ghost was looking in the pantry, Ethan muttered, his professional dignity now completely replaced by a desire for revenge. If I find his head, I'm kicking it into the ocean. They entered the mansion, and the air was so heavy it felt like walking through soup. The foyer was silent, but the shadows were twitching. The cellar door is under the kitchen stairs, Lucas said, leading the way with Alex practically glued to his back. They pushed open the door. It didn't creak, it groaned, a deep, bass sound that vibrated in their chests. The stairs were slick with dampness. As they descended, the light from their flashes revealed rows of old wine barrels, broken crates, and a lot of mannequins. Why are there so many mannequins? Alex shrieked, jumping as his light hit a plastic arm. It's like a graveyard for a department store. Wait, Leo stopped, pointing his light at the center of the room. There, sitting on a velvet stool, were 3 ornate, locked boxes. One was velvet, one was medical-grade steel, and one was wrapped in a rotting bridal veil. The treasure we were looking for, Leo whispered. It was under our feet the whole time. Before they could reach the boxes, the temperature plummeted. Oh no, Sora gasped. I'm getting sleepy. Ethan, I can't keep my eyes open. Don't sleep, William yelled, grabbing Leo. If we fall asleep now, we're trapped in the basement of the dream world. But the vow was too strong. One by one, their knees buckled. Despite the alpha's strength, a magical heaviness pulled their eyelids down. Suddenly, they were there. The basement in the dream world wasn't just damp, it was flooding with black ink. The three headless ghosts were standing between them and the boxes. The headless groom was towering over Lucas, the headless doctor was snapping his rusty stethoscope at Ethan, and a third ghost, a headless bride, was drifting toward Leo and Alex. Give us back, the voices hissed in unison. We're trying, Leo yelled, hiding behind William. But you're being very difficult. How are we supposed to open the boxes if you're trying to decapitate my husband? Lucas, the boxes, William shouted, shoving the headless groom back with a heavy wooden crate. We have to break the locks. It was a scene of pure horror comedy. Ethan was currently playing a game of keep away with the headless doctor, using a dusty wine bottle as a club. You want a head? Take a Cabernet. It's aged perfectly. Sora was frantically throwing holy water, but he was so panicked he accidentally splashed Lucas instead. Sorry, Lucas. You looked a bit possessed for a second. I'm not possessed, I'm annoyed. Lucas yelled, dodging the groom's spectral grasp. Alex and Leo, seeing their alphas struggling, realized they had to be the naughty troublemakers one last time. Alex, the medical box. Leo shouted. The twins sprinted past the headless bride, who tried to grab them with long, misty fingers. Leo slid across the floor like a baseball player, grabbing a heavy rock and smashing the lock on the steel box. He flipped the lid open. Inside was a skull wearing a pair of old-fashioned spectacles. Ethan, catch! Leo yelled, tossing the skull through the air. Ethan caught the skull mid-air. The headless doctor stopped mid-swing. He grabbed the skull from Ethan's hands and, with a wet squish, popped it onto his neck. The ghost blinked through the dusty glasses, looked at Ethan, nodded politely, and vanished into a cloud of green mist. One down. Alex cheered, grabbing the velvet box. Lucas, look out. But as Alex went to smash the second box, the headless groom let out a roar that shook the entire mansion. He wasn't going to let his head go so easily, he wanted a fresh one. He lunged for William, his ghostly hands closing around William's throat. No, hands off my alpha, Leo screamed, jumping onto the ghost's back. The basement was a whirlwind of spectral mist and high-pitched screaming. Leo was currently piggybacking on the headless groom, covering the ghost's neck stump with his hands as if playing a very macabre version of Guess Who? Alex. The box. Break the box before he shakes me off. Leo yelled, his legs kicking wildly. He smells like old mothballs and sadness. William was struggling to breathe, the ghost's icy grip tightening. Leo, get off him. He wheezed, worried the ghost would flip and crush his tiny omega. Alex scrambled toward the velvet box, but the headless bride wasn't having it. She floated over the black ink puddles, her tattered veil fluttering like a dead bird's wings. She let out a screech that shattered half the wine bottles on the racks. Hey, ghost lady, Sora yelled, finally finding his courage. He grabbed a handful of salt from his pocket he'd raided the kitchen earlier and threw it at her. Go find a spa, your skin is terrible, the bride hissed, distracted for a split second. That was all Alex needed. He grabbed a heavy iron fire poker and swung it with the strength of a panicked omega. Crack! The velvet box split open. Inside was a skull with a perfectly preserved, gold-toothed grin. Lucas, pass it to the groom. Alex shouted, kicking the skull across the floor like a soccer ball. Lucas intercepted the skull, spun around, and jammed it onto the headless groom's neck just as the ghost was about to slam Leo into a wall. Pop! The groom froze. He reached up, touched his gold tooth, and let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the bride, reached out a misty hand, and she drifted into his arms. Together, they turned into a swirl of white petals and evaporated, leaving only the smell of roses and dust. Is it over? Ethan panted, leaning against a barrel, his doctor's coat covered in mystery soot. Are we safe? Can I go back to my clinic where the only things that haunt me are insurance claims? Not yet, William gasped, rubbing his throat. He pointed at the third box, the one wrapped in the rotting veil. The bride's head. If we don't return hers, she'll come back. And she looked way meaner than the groom. Suddenly, the mansion began to groan. The walls started to shake, and the black ink on the floor began to rise. The vow is breaking, Mr. Grimshaw's voice echoed from the stairs. The house is rejecting the living. If you don't finish it in 3 minutes, you'll be buried in the foundation forever. 3 minutes. Leo shrieked. I haven't even finished my honeymoon wardrobe. Alex, help me. The twins rushed to the final box. But the lock was made of solid silver and wouldn't budge. It's stuck. Alex cried, hitting it with the poker. It's not breaking. Lucas and William stepped forward, pushing their omegas behind them. Move over, Lucas growled, his alpha strength peaking from the adrenaline. Both alphas grabbed the edges of the box, their muscles straining. With a roar of effort, they literally tore the silver lid off the hinges. Inside sat a beautiful, porcelain-like skull adorned with a tiara. Wait, Leo said, his eyes widening. If we give this back, the dream world ends. Does that mean we'll actually have to sleep for real? Without the drama? Yes, Leo. All three alphas shouted in unison. Leo pouted but picked up the tiara-clad skull. He walked to the center of the basement, where the air was shimmering. Here you go, Mrs. Ghost. Take your crown and go find your husband. And tell him to stop wearing that wedding suit, it's very 1920s. He tossed the head into the air. A blinding, white light filled the basement. Gasp. Leo sat bolt upright. He was in the master suite. The sun was shining. He felt warm. He looked to his left. William was there, snoring softly, his head very much attached to his body. He looked toward the door. Alex was peeking in, looking refreshed and, for the first time in a week, not terrified. Leo. Alex whispered. I checked the third floor. The peacock statue is gone. Just a pile of dust. And the basement? Leo asked, sliding out of bed. Lucas and Ethan are down there now. They said it's just a normal, boring cellar full of old wine. No ink, no boxes. Leo grinned, his mischievous spark returning. So, that means the horror part of the honeymoon is over. I think so, Alex said, a naughty glint in his eye. Which means we have 3 weeks of normal honeymoon left. Leo's face lit up. Willie, wake up. Now that the ghosts are gone, I've decided we're going to rearrange all the furniture in the house. And then we're going to see if the boat can go fast enough to water ski. William groaned into his pillow. Can we just have 1 hour of peace? Nope. The twins shouted together, jumping onto the bed. We're the Terror Twins. Peace wasn't in the marriage contract. Downstairs, drive. Ethan was already packing his bags. Sora, we're leaving. Now. I don't care if we have to swim. I'm never visiting these 4 ever again. But Ethan, Sora giggled, holding up a small, shimmering feather he'd found on his coat. Don't you want a souvenir? Ethan stared at the feather for 3 seconds, turned around, and ran out the front door toward the dock without looking back. The end. Subscribe for more BL fantasy stories every day. Next, there another story. The rain didn't just fall, it punished. It lashed against the pavement as Marcus collapsed onto the cold concrete of the driveway, his fingers scraping against the wet gravel. Behind him, the heavy oak door of the mansion, the home where he had painted a nursery just weeks ago, slammed shut with a finality that echoed like a gunshot. Liam, please, Marcus screamed, his voice breaking as it was swallowed by the thunder. He clutched his stomach, his protective instinct flaring even through the agonizing heartbreak. It's yours. I swear to God, the baby is yours. Inside, Liam stood behind the glass, his silhouette a jagged shadow of the man Marcus loved. He didn't look back. He couldn't. To Liam, the man sobbing in the rain wasn't his husband anymore. He was a stranger, a liar, a thief who had stolen his trust and replaced it with a hollow, bitter hole in his chest. To understand the depth of this betrayal, one had to look back years, to the sterile, high-pressure halls of the hospital where Marcus, a soft-spoken Omega, and Julian, a sharp-witted Beta, first met. They were the duo. While other nurses burned out, they thrived. Marcus provided the empathy, the gentle hand on a patient's shoulder. Julian provided the steel, the one who navigated the politics and shielded Marcus from the harsher realities of the ward. You're too soft, Mark, Julian would laugh, adjusting Marcus's scrubs. If I wasn't here, the doctors would eat you alive. Lucky for you, you've got me. Julian wasn't just a friend, he was Marcus's architect. When Marcus first laid eyes on Liam, a powerful, commanding alpha who visited the hospital for a charity board meeting, it was Julian who saw the spark. He's the one, Julian had whispered, leaning against the nurse's station. And I'm going to make sure he sees you. Julian had spent weeks coaching Marcus. He picked out the scents that would subtly draw an alpha's attention, he practiced conversation starters with him, he even worked extra shifts so Marcus could be, coincidentally, off-duty whenever Liam was hosting an event. Julian celebrated their wedding louder than anyone. He was the one who caught the bouquet. He was the brother Marcus never had. But perfection is a fragile thing. While Marcus's life ascended into a fairy tale of a wealthy husband and a looming pregnancy, Julian's life began to fray. His own fiancé, a man Julian had poured his soul into, was caught in a sordid affair. The night Julian's world ended, he reached for his lifeline, Marcus. Mark, please. I found the messages. He's been seeing her for months, Julian had sobbed into the phone, his voice a ragged mess. I'm at the bar. I can't go home. Come get me. Please. But Marcus was at a high-stakes gala for Liam's firm, a night where Liam was being honored as Entrepreneur of the Year. Jules, I'm so sorry, Marcus had whispered from a bathroom stall, his heart twisting. Liam is about to give his speech. I can't leave right now. I'll come the second it's over, I promise. Just take a cab to our place, the spare key is. A speech. Julian's voice had turned cold, the grief instantly curdling into a poisonous, concentrated rage. You're choosing a speech. After everything I did, I made you, Marcus. I dressed you for him. I pushed you into his arms. And now, when I'm bleeding out, you're worried about champagne and smiles. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You're just another selfish omega. You disgust me. The betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. Julian knew the hospital's systems. He knew how to access the lab results. He knew that Liam's greatest strength, his fierce loyalty, was also his greatest weakness. If he felt betrayed, he wouldn't just be angry, he would be scorched earth. When Julian ran into Liam at the hospital a week later, he didn't look like a man seeking revenge. He looked like a concerned friend. Liam, wait, Julian had said, catching him near the elevators. I shouldn't say anything. Marcus would kill me. But as your friend, I can't watch you be played. What are you talking about, Julian? Liam asked, his brow furrowed. He's always with Daniel, the chief of surgery. They stay late. They lock the door, Liam. I've seen the way they look at each other. Julian sighed, a masterclass in feigned sympathy. Are you sure the timeline of the pregnancy matches up? Just check the blood work. For your own peace of mind. That seed of doubt, planted by a best friend, grew into a forest of paranoia. And when Julian switched the vials in the lab, replacing Marcus's sample with a mismatched one, the trap was set. Back in the dining room, the silence was louder than the storm outside. Liam looked at his hands, the same hands that had held Marcus's face with such tenderness just 48 hours ago. Now, they felt stained. How could he? Liam roared at the empty room, sweeping a crystal vase off the sideboard. It shattered, much like his heart. He was my soul, my everything. Outside, Marcus was curled in a fetal position by the gate. The cold was beginning to numb his limbs. He looked up at the glowing windows of the bedroom they had shared, his voice a mere whisper now. Julian, why? He didn't have proof yet. He didn't know about the switched vials. All he knew was that the person who had built his life had just successfully torn it down. Marcus struggled to his feet, his hand resting protectively over his womb. He had no money, no phone, Liam had smashed it in his rage, and no home. But as a jagged bolt of lightning lit up the sky, Marcus's eyes didn't fill with more tears. For the first time, a flicker of something else appeared, the realization that the brother he loved was the one who had tightened the noose. You haven't won, Julian, Marcus breathed, his voice trembling but firm. I will protect this child. Even if I have to do it from the dirt. The streets of the city, once a shimmering backdrop to Marcus's fairy tale life, had turned into a labyrinth of cold stairs and slammed doors. It wasn't just that he had been thrown out, It was that Liam, with the calculated efficiency of a top-tier alpha, had scorched the earth behind him. "I'm sorry, Mr. Marcus," the hotel clerk said, his eyes darting to the computer screen before looking away in shame. "Your credit cards, they've all been flagged. And my manager, he received a call. We can't offer you a room." "A call? From who?" Marcus whispered, his voice raspy from the rain and the sobbing. "From the CEO of the Sterling Group," the clerk muttered. "Mr. Liam said that anyone who assists you is officially an enemy of his firm. I have a family to feed, sir. Please, just go." Marcus stumbled back into the night. It wasn't just the hotels. The local cafes, the small boutiques where he used to be a VIP, everyone had heard. Julian had seen to that. Julian sat in the sterile break room of the hospital, his thumb hovering over his phone. His eyes were bloodshot, the dark circles under them a testament to the hatred that kept him awake. He didn't feel the relief he expected. Instead, he felt a frantic, vibrating need to see Marcus truly destroyed. He opened the hospital's private staff forum and then his public social media. "It's always the ones who look the most innocent," Julian typed, his fingers flying. "I spent years protecting Marcus. I coached him, loved him like a brother. And how does he repay the alpha who gave him everything? By carrying another man's child while living in a mansion. I saw the lab results myself. My heart breaks for Liam. Omegas like Marcus give the rest of us a bad name. Truly disgusting." By morning, the post had thousands of shares. The perfect Omega was now the social pariah. With nowhere left to turn, Marcus dragged his soaked suitcase to the one place he thought would have a sliver of mercy, his childhood home. His father, a stern alpha who had always viewed Marcus's softness as a liability, didn't even open the gate. He spoke through the intercom, his voice booming with a cold, metallic resonance. "Do not step foot on this property, Marcus," his father barked. "Dad, please. I'm pregnant. I have nowhere to go." "Liam, he's mistaken, the test was wrong. The test was science." His mother's voice joined in, sharp and shrill. "We finally had a connection to the Sterling family, and you threw it away for a surgeon. You've humiliated this family. Julian called us. He told us everything. He was the only one who truly cared about your reputation, and even he couldn't cover up your filth anymore. Julian is lying," Marcus screamed, hitting the iron bars of the gate until his knuckles bled. "He's doing this because I wasn't there for him. Please, just let me sleep in the garage. You are no son of mine," his father snapped. The intercom clicked off. The lights in the hallway died. Marcus collapsed on the sidewalk, the weight of the pregnancy pulling at his lower back. His vision began to blur. He was starving, dehydrated, and losing hope. "You look like you're about to break," a calm, melodic voice said. Marcus looked up. Standing over him was Dr. Aris, a hematologist from a rival hospital, a man known for his cold brilliance and for being the only person Julian could never intimidate. "Dr. Aris," Marcus gasped. "I saw the post Julian made. It was uncharacteristically loud for a beta who claims to be professional," Aris said, adjusting his glasses. He looked at Marcus's trembling hands. "And I know Julian. He's a man driven by a very specific kind of wounded pride. Get up, Marcus. I don't care about your drama, but I do care about medical anomalies. And a 99.9% mismatch in a stable marriage. That smells like a laboratory error. Or a crime." Meanwhile, Liam sat in his darkened office, a glass of amber scotch trembling in his hand. He stared at the paternity report. He wanted to burn it, but he couldn't stop looking at the red ink that said, "Excluded." His phone buzzed. It was Julian. "Hey, Liam. Just checking on you. I know it hurts, but you're better off. I'm here if you need to talk. Don't let that snake crawl back in." Liam stared at the text. Something felt itchy. He remembered the night of the gala. He remembered Marcus's face when he had apologized for not being able to help Julian. Did he really do it, Julian? Liam whispered to the empty room. Or did I just kill the only person who ever truly loved me? But the anger was a thick, black oil. He thought of Dr. Daniel. He thought of the whispers. Every time he felt a spark of regret, he pictured Marcus in another man's arms, and his heart hardened again. Aris took Marcus to a small, hidden clinic, one not owned by the Sterling Group. I need to find the original blood vials, Aris, Marcus said, his voice regaining a tiny spark of fire through the exhaustion. The hospital log says they were destroyed after the test was processed. Julian was the head nurse on duty that night. He wiped the secondary samples. He's thorough, Aris admitted, checking Marcus's vitals. But Julian is a beta. He thinks in straight lines. He forgot one thing, the backup digital signature from the analyzer machine. Every time a sample is run, the machine stores a raw data packet. It's not the official report, but it's the truth. Can we get it? I can't. But you're still a registered nurse there. If you can get into the server room. Marcus looked at his reflection in the clinic mirror. He was pale, his eyes sunken, his spirit crushed by the man he called husband and the man he called brother. I'll do it, Marcus whispered. Not for Liam, not for Julian, for the baby. I won't let them grow up thinking they were a mistake. The air in the city had grown toxic. For Marcus, every breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. The digital smear campaign Julian orchestrated had moved from the screen to the streets. Marcus was no longer a person, he was a cautionary tale, a symbol of Omega treachery. Marcus knew he was at his breaking point. His body felt heavy, a dull, throbbing ache radiating from his abdomen, the physical manifestation of a soul being crushed. Yet, he pushed himself. Dressed in a hooded sweatshirt to hide his face, he slipped into the hospital's basement through the service entrance. He reached the server room, his fingers trembling as he entered his old staff credentials. Access denied. Trying to find something, Marcus. Marcus whirled around. Julian stood in the doorway, the blue light of the servers casting ghoulish shadows across his face. He wasn't the friend Marcus remembered, he looked like a man possessed by a fever. Julian, Marcus gasped, clutching his stomach. Please, I know you're angry. I know I failed you that night. But this is a child. Our child. How can you be so cruel? Cruel. Julian stepped closer, his voice a low, venomous hiss. You sat in that mansion while I sat in the dirt. You watched me break while you played, perfect Omega. I didn't just change the results, Marcus. I erased you. I took the raw data packets you were looking for and I scrubbed the drive. There is no truth left. Only the story I tell. You're insane, Marcus whispered, tears blurring his vision. No, Julian smiled, a cold, empty expression. I'm just a better friend than you ever were. I'm protecting Liam from a liar. Now, get out before I call security and tell them you're trying to steal drugs. Across town, Liam was a ghost in his own office. He had spent the night reviewing the security footage from the hospital the day Julian caught Marcus with Dr. Daniel. The footage showed Marcus and Daniel talking, yes. But Daniel was holding a clipboard, and Marcus was crying, not with passion, but with the exhaustion of a double shift. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. He called the lab. I want a second audit of the digital logs, Liam commanded. Sir, the technician hesitated. Nurse Julian already requested an audit this morning. He said you were concerned about a breach. He helped us clean up the corrupted files. Everything matches the original report. Liam froze. Julian helped clean up. Why was a nurse involved in a digital audit? The first crack in the lie began to widen, but before he could follow the thread, his secretary burst in. Sir, you need to look outside. There's a riot at the main entrance. Marcus had reached the Sterling Group headquarters. He was weak, his legs shaking, but he had to see Liam. He had to tell him that Julian had confessed in the basement. But as he approached the glass doors, a woman recognized him. There he is. The cheater, she screamed. Within seconds, a crowd gathered. These were people who had read Julian's posts, people who felt righteous in their hatred. Disgusting. A man yelled, throwing a half-eaten sandwich at Marcus. How do you sleep at night? Please, Marcus sobbed, shielding his belly with his arms. Let me through. I need to see my husband. He's not your husband anymore. Someone shouted. A bag of garbage was ripped open and dumped over his head. The stench of rot filled his senses, but it was the words that stung more. You're a stain on every Omega out there. Marcus felt a sharp, searing heat in his lower back. No, not now. Please, baby, stay. Liam, he screamed, his voice reaching a pitch of pure agony. Liam, help me. Liam reached the balcony just in time to see the crowd surging. He saw Marcus, covered in filth, hunched over, surrounded by a circle of people mocking him. "Move!" Liam roared, sprinting toward the elevators. But down on the pavement, the stress had become a physical weight. Marcus felt a sudden, terrifying coldness wash over him. His knees buckled. "Look at him, faking it for sympathy." A voice laughed. Marcus looked down. A dark, terrifying stain was blooming through his light-colored trousers, spreading onto the gray concrete. The world began to tilt. The shouting of the crowd faded into a dull hum, replaced by the sound of his own heartbeat, slowing, fading. "My baby," Marcus whispered. He reached out a hand, his fingers brushing the cold glass of the office building. "Liam, I didn't. I never." He collapsed. Liam burst through the doors a second later, his alpha pheromones exploding in a wave of protective fury that sent the crowd scrambling back in terror. "Marcus." Liam gathered the limp, broken body of his husband into his arms. He didn't care about the garbage, the smell, or the rumors. He only felt the terrifying wetness on Marcus's clothes. "Wake up. Marcus, look at me." Liam's voice broke, a raw, guttural sound of an alpha realizing he had destroyed his own world. Marcus's eyes flickered open for a brief second. They weren't filled with anger. They were filled with a hollow, dead silence. "It's gone, Liam," Marcus whispered, his voice as thin as paper. "You got what you wanted. There's no baby to doubt anymore." His head fell back. In the distance, Julian stood at the edge of the crowd, his face pale. He had wanted Marcus to hurt. He had wanted Marcus to feel his pain. But as he watched Liam wailing over Marcus's unconscious body, Julian felt a cold realization: he hadn't just punished Marcus. He had killed the only thing that had ever been pure in his life. The hospital room was suffocatingly white, smelling of bleach and the metallic tang of grief. Marcus lay in the bed, his face as pale as the pillows, his eyes fixed on a single point on the ceiling. He wasn't crying anymore. The tears had dried into salt streaks, leaving behind a hollow shell. The silence in the room was a heavy, physical thing, pressing down on his chest where a heart used to beat. The door creaked open. Liam stepped in, his expensive suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who had walked through hell, but even now, his posture held that insufferable alpha authority. He sat by the bed, reaching out to touch Marcus's hand, but Marcus pulled away as if Liam's skin were burning coal. "Marcus," Liam whispered, his voice thick with a forced tenderness. "The doctors, they told me. I'm sorry. I know I was angry, I know I threw you out, but I never wanted this. I never wanted the child to pay for what happened." Marcus didn't move. He didn't blink. "Listen to me," Liam continued, leaning in, his voice dropping to a tone of magnanimous forgiveness. "I've thought about it all night. I've decided. I'm going to forgive you. We can move past this. I know you made a mistake with Daniel. I know that baby wasn't mine, but now that it's gone, the evidence of your betrayal is gone too. We can start over. We'll go to the villa in Italy. Just you and me. I won't ever mention his name again. I'll protect you from the public." A jagged, broken laugh escaped Marcus's throat. It wasn't a sound of joy, it was the sound of a soul snapping. He finally turned his head to look at Liam. His eyes were dead, no spark, no love, just a cold, infinite distance. "You'll forgive me." Marcus's voice was a ghostly rasp. "Yes," Liam said, reaching for his hand again, thinking he had won. "I love you that much, Marcus. I can overlook the infidelity. We can have our own child, a true sterling heir, when you're ready." "You still think I cheated," Marcus said, his voice flat. "Even after I bled out on the pavement. Even after I begged you on my knees. You still believe a piece of paper and the whispers of the street over the man who slept beside you for 2 years. The science didn't lie, Marcus." Julian saw the logs. Liam snapped, his frustration flickering. "But I'm saying it doesn't matter anymore. I'm offering you a life again. I don't want a life with a man who needs a lab report to tell him who I am," Marcus said, his voice gaining a terrifyingly calm strength. "You say you'll forgive me. Liam, I will never forgive you. You didn't just lose a child today. You lost the only person who would have died for you. Get out." Outside the door, Julian stood paralyzed. He had come to the hospital with a folder, the real logs, the ones he hadn't managed to fully delete because drive. Aris had been watching. He had intended to come clean, driven by the sickening image of Marcus in the rain. But hearing Liam offer forgiveness for a crime Marcus never committed made Julian's stomach churn. He realized that his lie had grown into a monster he couldn't control. If he confessed now, Liam would kill him. If he stayed silent, Marcus would die inside. He pushed the door open, his face twisted in a mask of guilt. "Marcus, I brought you some things from the house." Marcus didn't even look at him. "Did you come to see if I was finished, Julian? Are you satisfied? I'm in a hospital bed, my baby is dead, my husband thinks I'm a whore, and the whole world hates me. Is your revenge complete?" I didn't mean for it to go this far," Julian stammered, his eyes filling with useless, selfish tears. "I was just hurt. You weren't there for me, Marcus. I was drowning and you were at a party. And so you drowned me in blood," Marcus whispered. He finally looked at Julian, and the hatred in his gaze was so pure it made the beta flinch. "You were my brother. I would have given you my last breath. Now, I hope every time you close your eyes, you see the blood on that sidewalk. Because that is your legacy." "Marcus, don't say that," Julian reached out. "Get out," Marcus suddenly screamed, a raw, primal sound that brought the nurses running. "Both of you, get out of my sight." Liam stood up, his alpha pride wounded by the rejection. "You're emotional, Marcus. You're not thinking straight. I'll give you a few days to realize that without me, you have nothing. No family, no home, no reputation. I am your only hope. I would rather have nothing than have a lie," Marcus said, turning back to the wall. As the two men walked out, one fueled by a delusional sense of mercy, the other by a rotting conscience, Marcus curled into a ball. He didn't care about the truth anymore. What good was the truth if the life it was supposed to protect was gone? He placed a hand on his empty stomach. The silence there was the loudest thing in the world. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the child he would never hold. "I'm so sorry I brought you into a world with people like them." In that quiet room, Marcus made a silent vow. He would find the evidence. Not to win Liam back, that bridge was burnt to ashes, but to burn Julian's world down to the ground. He would wait. He would heal. And then, he would become the nightmare they deserved. The white walls of the hospital were no longer a sanctuary, they were a cage. 2 weeks had passed since the silence replaced the heartbeat in Marcus's womb. Dr. Aris stood by the window, watching the rain, the same rain that had washed away Marcus's life. He turned to look at the Omega sitting on the bed. Marcus was no longer the soft, gentle nurse. His eyes were like flint, cold and unyielding. "I found a way into the restricted server, Aris," Marcus said, his voice a jagged edge. "I'm going to the press. I'm going to ruin Julian today. And then I'm going to Liam's office and I'm going to." "And then what?" Aris interrupted, his voice calm but heavy. "You'll go there with no money, no family, and a reputation that is currently in the gutter. Liam is an alpha with the legal system in his pocket. Julian is a victim in the eyes of the public. You'll be arrested before you even reach the podium. I don't care about jail." Marcus hissed, his fingers digging into the bedsheets. "I want them to suffer. If you want revenge for your child, Marcus, you don't seek it as a beggar," Aris said, walking over and placing a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You seek it as a king. Right now, you are a ghost. You need to disappear. You need to become someone so powerful that when you speak, the world trembles. You need to build a fortress so high that Liam Sterling can't even see the top of it." Marcus looked up, a flicker of something, ambition, or perhaps just a deeper shade of hate, igniting in his chest. "How?" "I have connections in the north," Aris whispered. "A pharmaceutical empire that needs a mind like yours, someone who knows the floor in the lab. I will fund you. I will give you a new name, a new life. But you must promise me one thing. You do not look back until you are ready to burn the bridge behind you." That night, under the cover of a shift change, Aris smuggled Marcus out of the hospital. There were no goodbyes. Marcus left behind his wedding ring on the bedside table, not placed gently, but dropped like a piece of trash. When Liam arrived the next morning, bouquet of lilies in hand, his mercy still fueling his ego, he found an empty bed. "Where is he?" Liam demanded, grabbing a nurse by the arm. "Where is my husband? He discharged himself, Mr. Sterling," the nurse stammered, terrified. He left no forwarding address. He's just gone." Liam felt a sudden, cold vacuum in his chest. He called the guards, the police, his private investigators. "Find him. He's an Omega alone in the city. He has nothing. How far could he have gone? But Marcus was already miles away, staring out the window of a private car, watching the city lights fade. He wasn't crying. He was studying a ledger Aris had given him. He was learning how to be a monster. The desperation drove Liam to madness. For 3 months, he searched. In his obsession, he began to look into everything Marcus touched. He went back to the hospital, not as a donor, but as an inquisitor. He bypassed the nurses. He bypassed the administrators. He hired a digital forensic expert from overseas. "Sir," the expert said, pointing to a string of code on a hidden backup drive Aris had intentionally left, discoverable, before he too resigned. The paternity report was generated at 10:14 p.m. But look at the raw data entry. The blood chemistry for the father was altered manually at 10:10 p.m. From a terminal logged in under the name Julian Vane. Liam's world didn't just shatter, it imploded. The air left his lungs. He saw it all in a flash, the garbage thrown at Marcus, the blood on the sidewalk, the way he had looked into Marcus's eyes and told him he forgave him for a lie. Julian, Liam whispered, the name tasting like ash. Liam found Julian at a high-end bar, celebrating a promotion. Julian looked happy, though his eyes were always darting, always searching. Liam didn't shout. He walked up and dropped the forensic files onto the bar counter. Julian's face went from flushed to ghostly white in a second. "Liam, I can explain." Liam's hand clamped around Julian's throat, slamming him against the mahogany wood. The Alpha's aura was so violent that the music stopped. "You killed my child," Liam growled, his voice vibrating with a lethal promise. "You whispered poison into my ear and I drank it. You destroyed the only person who mattered. I loved you." Julian choked out, tears streaming down his face. "He didn't deserve you. I did everything for you. You are nothing," Liam said, throwing him to the floor like a broken toy. "I will strip you of your license. I will sue you until you are starving in the streets. But that won't be enough. Because Marcus is gone, and I am the one who drove him away." The jewelry and pharmaceutical world was buzzing about the arrival of the new CEO of Edelbert Industries. No one knew his face, only his reputation, cold, brilliant, and untouchable. In his penthouse office, Marcus, now known as M.A. Thorne, adjusted his cufflinks. His frame was broader, his gaze sharper, his presence commanding. He was no longer a nurse. He was a titan. He picked up a newspaper. The headline read, "Sterling Group faces bankruptcy amidst CEO's personal spiral." Marcus allowed a small, predatory smile to touch his lips. He looked at Drive Aris, who was now his chief of operations. "Is the invitation sent?" Marcus asked. "To the charity gala?" "Yes," Aris replied. "Liam Sterling and the disgraced Julian Vane are both on the list. They think they're attending a fundraiser. They don't know they're attending a funeral." Marcus stood up, the power radiating from him like a physical heat. "Good. Tell the driver to get the car. I've kept them waiting long enough." The grand ballroom of the Imperial Hotel was a sea of silk, gold, and whispered secrets. It was the social event of the decade, the relaunch of Edelbert Industries. But for 2 men in attendance, the night felt less like a celebration and more like a haunting. Liam Sterling sat at a corner table, a shell of the alpha he once was. His empire was crumbling, his eyes hollowed out by 2 years of scouring the earth for a ghost. Beside him, uninvited but clinging like a parasite, was Julian. After Liam had stripped him of his nursing license, Julian had plummeted into a life of desperate social climbing, yet he still harbored the delusional hope that if he stayed near Liam, he could eventually be forgiven. "I heard the new CEO is ruthless," Julian whispered, his voice trembling as he clutched a glass of cheap wine. "They say he bought out 3 of your subsidiaries last month, Liam. Maybe you can negotiate." "Shut up, Julian," Liam rasped, not even looking at him. "I'm only here because I have no choice." The heavy double doors swung open, and the room went silent. The air changed instantly, charged with the heavy, commanding scent of an Alpha-class presence, yet it was an Omega who stepped into the light. He was draped in a charcoal-colored suit of Italian silk, a brooch made of rare black moissanite, a piece from his own Galaxygems line, shimmering on his lapel. His hair was styled back, revealing a face that was hauntingly familiar, yet hardened into a mask of regal indifference. Liam's glass shattered in his hand. The shards cut his palm, but he didn't feel the pain. "Marcus." He breathed, his heart hammering against his ribs so hard it felt like it would break. Julian turned ashen, his knees buckling. No. He was supposed to be ruined. He was supposed to be nothing. Marcus didn't run to them. He didn't cry. He walked to the center stage with a predatory grace, drive. Aris following half a step behind him like a loyal shadow. Marcus took the microphone, his gaze sweeping over the crowd until it landed, heavy and cold, on the table where Liam and Julian sat. "Good evening," Marcus said. His voice was no longer the soft lilt of a nurse, it was the resonance of a man who owned the ground everyone stood on. 2 years ago, a man was thrown out of his home into the rain. He was called a liar, a traitor, and a disgusting omega. He lost everything, his career, his dignity, and the life of his unborn child. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. The world thought he was dead, Marcus continued, his eyes locking onto Liam's tear-filled ones. But he didn't die. He transformed. Because pain is a powerful fuel, and tonight, the bill is due. Marcus gestured to the giant projector screen behind him. Before we discuss business, I'd like to share a piece of history. A digital forensic audit of the St. Jude Hospital labs from 2 years ago. Julian let out a choked sob. Liam, we have to go. Now. But Liam was frozen. On the screen, the evidence flashed in giant, undeniable letters. The time-stamped logs of Julian Vane accessing the server, the manual alteration of the paternity codes, and the final command to delete the backup, a command that had failed. This, Marcus said, pointing to the screen, is why the Sterling Group is failing. It was built on the judgment of an alpha who couldn't see the truth even when it was screaming in his face. And this, he looked at Julian, is the price of a beta's envy. As the crowd erupted into shocked whispers, Marcus stepped off the stage and walked directly toward their table. Security stood in a perimeter, preventing anyone from interfering. Liam stood up, his legs shaking. Marcus, I found the truth too late. I've been looking for you. I've been dying every day. Please, let me make it right. I'll give you the company, all. You have nothing to give me, Liam, Marcus interrupted, his voice like dry ice. I already bought your debt. I own your house. I own the office you sit in. By tomorrow morning, you will be exactly where you left me, on the street, with nothing but the clothes on your back. Marcus, please. Julian fell to his knees, grabbing at Marcus's trousers. I was your friend. I loved you. I was just hurt. Marcus looked down at Julian with a look of pure, clinical disgust. He didn't kick him away, he simply stepped back, letting Julian fall onto the floor. You weren't hurt, Julian. You were small, Marcus said. And because you were small, you tried to shrink the world to fit you. But look at me now. Do I look small to you? Marcus turned to Aris. Call the authorities. I want Julian Vane arrested for medical fraud and the tampering of legal records. As for Mr. Sterling, let him stay for the rest of the party. I want him to watch everyone toast to the man he destroyed. Marcus. Liam cried out, reaching for him. The baby. I'm so sorry about the baby. Marcus stopped. He didn't turn around, but his shoulders stiffened for a fraction of a second. Don't you dare speak of my child. You didn't believe in him when he was a heartbeat. Don't pretend to mourn him now that he's an angel. Marcus walked out of the ballroom, his head held high. Behind him, the sound of camera flashes and the shouting of the press filled the air as Julian was led away in handcuffs and Liam collapsed into his chair, realizing that while he had been forgiving a crime that never happened, he had missed his only chance at salvation. Outside, the air was cool and crisp. Marcus looked up at the moon and placed a hand over his heart. It's done, he whispered. The revenge was over, but the life of Marcus Thorne had only just begun. The penthouse office of Edelgard Industries was silent, the city lights below flickering like dying embers. Marcus stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass, his reflection staring back, a man who had conquered his enemies but had forgotten how to smile. The heavy doors opened. He didn't need to turn around to know the scent. A scent that once meant home, but now felt like the smell of a cold hearth. The security let me up, Liam said, his voice cracked and hollow. He looked ravaged. The powerful alpha who once commanded boardrooms now looked like a ghost haunting his own life. Marcus, I sold the last of the properties. I've cleared the debts. I wanted to see you. One last time. Marcus turned slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. You've seen me, Liam. Now leave. Liam took a step forward, his eyes brimming with a desperate, pathetic hope. I'll do anything. I'll start from the bottom. I'll be your assistant, your driver, I just want to be near you. I know I failed you. I know I killed our happiness, but please, tell me there is a spark left. Tell me the love we had isn't completely dead. Marcus looked at him, and for the first time in years, there was no anger. There was only a profound, chilling indifference. I don't hate you, Liam, Marcus said softly. Liam's face lit up for a fraction of a second. You don't. No. To hate you, I would have to feel something. And when I look at you, I feel nothing. It's like looking at a stranger in a crowd. Marcus walked toward him, stopping just out of reach. You keep blaming Julian. You say he poisoned you. But Julian was just a voice outside. You were the one inside. You were the one who held my hand, who looked into my soul every night, and yet, you chose to believe a piece of paper over me. I was a fool. Liam sobbed, dropping to his knees. I was blinded by pride. You weren't just a fool, Liam. You were the reason our baby is gone. Marcus's voice trembled slightly, the only sign of the pain beneath the ice. The stress, the garbage, the cold pavement, that wasn't Julian's hand pushing me down. It was yours. Our child died because his father didn't recognize his own blood. Our love died with that baby. You can't resurrect what has turned to ash. Marcus reached out, but not to touch Liam. He opened the door. The chapter of Liam and Marcus is closed. Not just the page, Liam. The whole book is burned. Go find a way to live with yourself, because I will no longer be the mirror that reflects your guilt. Goodbye, Liam. Liam looked up, realizing the finality in Marcus's eyes. There was no more room for negotiation. He stood up, his shoulders slumped, and walked out of the office, his footsteps echoing like a funeral march. Once the elevator doors closed, the silence returned, but it was quickly broken by a soft knock. Doctor. Aris stepped inside, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He didn't ask how it went. He already knew. For 2 years, Aris had been the architect of Marcus's rise. He had sat across from him during late-night strategy sessions, watched him learn to navigate the cutthroat world of finance, and shielded him from the media. Aris set the glasses down and looked at Marcus with an admiration that was far deeper than professional respect. He's gone. Forever, Marcus sighed, leaning against his desk. Aris stepped closer, the warmth of his presence a sharp contrast to the coldness Liam had left behind. You've spent 700 days fueled by spite, Marcus. You've won. The empire is yours. The enemies are in the dirt. But your heart, it's still holding its breath. Marcus looked away. Over the last 2 years, Aris had tried. Subtle touches, lingering glances, the occasional, accidental, flirtation over dinner. Marcus had always stepped back. I'm not ready, he would say. I have work to do. Aris, Marcus whispered. I'm tired of being a weapon. Then stop being one, Aris said, his voice a low, soothing melody. He reached out, and this time, Marcus didn't pull away when Aris's thumb brushed his cheek. For 2 years, I've waited. I've watched you become a lion, but I still remember the man who loved to cook pasta and talk about the stars. I don't want the CEO, Marcus. I want you. Marcus looked into Aris's eyes. There was no doubt there. No demand for a paternity test. No forgiveness for imaginary sins. Just a steady, unwavering belief. I don't know if I remember how to be a person again, Marcus admitted, his voice cracking. I don't know if I can love without waiting for the blow to fall. Then let me teach you, Aris smiled, a genuine, soft expression. We don't have to start with love. Let's start with dinner. No business. No revenge. Just you and me. Marcus looked at the city below. The past was a graveyard, but the future was a vast, open horizon. He reached out and took Aris's hand. His fingers were warm. Dinner, Marcus agreed, a small, real smile finally breaking through the ice. I'd like that. The revenge was over. The pain was recorded in the scars of his heart. But as Marcus walked out of the office with Aris, he wasn't looking back at the shadows. He was walking toward the light of a new day, finally ready to heal. While Marcus built a life of warmth, the ghosts of his past wandered the ruins of theirs. In a cramped, gray apartment on the outskirts of the city, Julian sat alone. His hands, once skilled in the surgical theater, were now tremulous and stained with the ink of low-end clerical work. He was a man whose name was a permanent red flag in every medical database in the country. He spent his nights scrolling through social media, watching the world celebrate the Thorn Aris legacy, his heart a rotting pit of envy that had no one left to poison but himself. He had won the competition he started, only to find the prize was a lifetime of silence. Liam had become a man of shadows. He had lost the Sterling Group to Marcus's hostile takeover, but his greatest loss was his sanity. He was often seen sitting on a bench near the hospital where it all began, staring at the pavement where Marcus had fallen. He lived in a perpetual state of, what if, haunted by the memory of a baby he had disowned and a husband he had discarded. He was an alpha with no pack, a king with no kingdom, serving a life sentence of regret. A year after the gala, the halls of the Thorn Aris estate were no longer silent. Marcus sat in a plush velvet rocking chair by the window, the morning sun bathing him in a golden glow. In his arms lay a bundle wrapped in soft white cashmere, a baby boy with tufts of dark hair and deep, peaceful eyes. This child wasn't a tool for revenge or a source of doubt, he was a miracle born of healing. The door opened quietly, and Aris stepped in. He didn't look like the cold, calculating doctor the world knew. He looked like a man who had finally found his North Star. He carried a tray with tea and a small plate of the fresh pasta Marcus had taught him to make. "He's finally asleep," Aris whispered, kneeling beside the chair. Just now, Marcus smiled, and this time, the smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners with genuine joy. "He has your stubbornness, Aris." He refused to close his eyes until he heard your voice in the hallway. Aris reached out, his fingers grazing the baby's tiny hand. The child instinctively curled a finger around Aris's thumb. Aris looked at Marcus, his gaze unwavering and full of a fierce, protective devotion. "I promised you once that I would help you become someone no one could touch," Aris said softly. "But seeing you like this, I realized I didn't just want you to be powerful. I wanted you to be safe. I wanted you to be loved." "I am," Marcus replied, leaning his head against Aris's shoulder. "For the first time in my life, I don't have to prove my worth. I don't have to show a lab report to be believed. You saw me when I was nothing but a broken shadow in the rain, and you stayed. Because I knew the heart inside that shadow," Aris whispered. He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to Marcus's forehead and then to the baby's crown. "I trust you with my life, Marcus. And I thank you for trusting me with yours." Marcus looked down at his son. 2 years ago, he thought his world had ended on a cold sidewalk. He thought he would never feel the weight of a child against his chest without feeling the phantom pain of the one he lost. But as he sat there, flanked by a partner who respected his strength and cherished his softness, Marcus realized that karma wasn't just about the punishment of the wicked. It was about the restoration of the innocent. "We should name him Leo," Marcus said, his voice firm and clear. "It means lion. Because he was born from the strength we found in the dark." "Leo Aris Thorn," Aris agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "It's perfect." Outside, the world continued its frantic pace, but inside the room, time stood still. The nurse who had been betrayed, the Omega who had been cast out, was now a titan of industry and a father of a new legacy. Marcus closed his eyes, listening to the synchronized breathing of his husband and his son. The story that had begun with a scream in the rain had finally ended with a whisper of peace.